All right, here's the real deal. The vaccine insanity has to stop. It's costing us more than our freedom of choice. It's costing us our religious liberties. We're now seeing it with our military. Today, dozens of U.S. Navy SEALs and other naval special warfare personnel filed a lawsuit against Joe Biden himself and the Department of Defense for their absolute refusal to grant religious exemptions to the vaccine mandate. The lawsuit, filed by the First Liberty Institute, states, and I quote here, "The fact that the government has not granted a single religious exemption from the vaccine mandate shows that the Biden administration does not care about religious freedom. Instead, this appears to be an attempted ideological purge." Well, the lawsuit represents Navy SEALs with more than a combined 350 years of service, and yet the complaint alleges that the Navy is threatening to detitle some of these plaintiffs for even seeking religious exemptions as punishment for non-compliance. This is severe punishment. Stripping of those titles happens to people who are being court-martialed, not people who are applying for medical exemptions. I want to welcome in my panel now, co-hosts of Chicks on the Right, Amy Jo Clark and Miriam Weaver. Amy Jo, Miriam, great to have you on the program.
Hi.
All right, Amy Jo, let's start with you. Your response to this lawsuit.
I think that it's great that they're fighting back. I mean, I'd like to see some testicular fortitude. It's when it comes to the vaccine mandates. I feel like so many people have rolled over with this, and tyrants are going to do what tyrants do. Tyrants are going to tyrant, right? And I feel like the Biden administration has been doing a lot of tyranting, if you will, and it's all about power with them. Yeah. So these are the best of the best, the Navy SEALs. And this breaks my heart. Our military is just going to be weaker and weaker because of this administration.
I promise you, the last thing Navy SEALs are concerned about is COVID when they're fighting terrorists on the front lines for us. This is just silly. All right, Miriam, speaking of silliness, I want you to listen to Mayor Bill de Blasio of New York talk about the possibility now of vaccine cards for 5-year-olds, 11-year-olds, kids. Watch.
At what point will you ask them to also start checking for vax cards for 5 to 11-year-olds?
That's a very good question, and honestly, one we need to focus on now. We wanted to get to the day where we actually could vaccinate the youngest New Yorkers and get that rolling.
5-year-olds, Miriam?
Oh my God.
He should be forced to compare how New York has done against Florida and take a look at those results. And he should, it doesn't freak me out that he is saying those things because we know that he is a commie tyrant, and that's not a surprise. I think I'm more freaked out by the people in New York City who are actually putting up with these kinds of comments and these kinds of mandates without more pushback. We're seeing some protests, and that's great, but there needs to be a lot more people coming out and saying, this is an illness. The fact that you are desperate to inject my 5-year-old is a sickness.
Yeah. You know what's interesting is I'm seeing a real similarity, as you mentioned this, and you mentioned Florida, between guns and COVID. Why is it the states with the fewest gun laws have the least amount of illegal gun use and crimes, just as the fewest mandates and fewest regulations over COVID have the least amount of cases? You look at this map, it's all the southern states, the real Republican states are doing great. And Amy Jo, the liberal states are not doing so great.
Exactly. And you're never going to hear about that in the mainstream news, right? I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you hear about it here. If you listen to like an MSNBC or CNN or just like mainstream news, you don't hear about that kind of, you never hear about the good news. You don't hear about the good news in Florida and the fact that their COVID rates are down. You don't hear about the good news like that, because that's not the narrative that they want out there, right?
I hope that every now and then I bring you some good news. It's tough, though, lately in this climate. I'll tell you what, it really, really is. Amy Jo Clark, Miriam Weaver, to the both of you, thank you. Always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank
All
you.
right, folks, as we move on, what they say on TV is not what they write in their studies. Could this be true? Next, I'll reveal to you a document written by Pfizer and presented to the FDA, where Pfizer acknowledges under certain circumstances the vaccine, you ready for this, could do more harm than good. The quote buried deep in that Pfizer report, next.